To Creature Eye Live Daily News. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ethan. Today we're going over ankylosaurs as well as ornithopods and wolves and mammoths. So we're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. Let's head back to the Mesozoic era. From Sci News, armored herbivorous dinosaur preferred fern leaves. This is not too surprising considering I'd say most species of herbivorous dinosaurs dating back to the mid Triassic over 235 million years ago were likely feeding on different species of plants. However, I'm going to correct myself. At the very beginning of the dinosaurs' evolution, it seems to be that they were meat eaters. This occurred with the early species of theropods or the carnivorous dinosaurs, as well as the different species of prosauropods or the early saurischians. It wouldn't be probably for another few million years until they would start feeding on vegetation. So, paleontologists in Canada have analyzed the fossilized stomach contents from the exceptionally preserved specimen of Borealopelta markmichelli, a species of nodosaur type of ankylosaur that lived about 110 million years ago during the Cretaceous period. Well, this is definitely a species of ankylosauromorph that occurs much earlier in the Cretaceous or the Mesozoic era compared to a lot of somewhat more recognizable kin that existed over in late Cretaceous Canada. However, I would say that during the early Cretaceous period, the nodosaurs are much more renowned compared to their late Cretaceous counterparts to an extent, especially since you have certain species like Edmontonia, which existed much later into the Cretaceous period, around 75 million years ago. This is definitely your basal look for a nodosaur. I mean, very elongated shoulder blade, spike like structures, as well as just osteoderms covering most of the tail, the upper core area. What is interesting is on this specific species, the spikes are not really protruding off the legs, which is odd considering there are a wide variety of different species of nodosaurs, as well as true ankylosaurs, where you do have a wide range of armor around the upper legs. So it's a bit surprising on this individual, unless that's possibly what's protruding on the upper humerus or the upper arm region. It's hard to tell. And then definitely, I guess what is interesting is this Nodosaur is being shown as having a bit more of an ankylosaur sort of a skull morphology. Very broad horn structures toward the side, not really a Nodosaur appearance.
Just weird as his face seemed to blend in with the rest of his body.
To an extent, seems to be, but it's not a very notosaur sort of physique. I mean, it's a bit closer to the ankylosaurs. Even Edmontonia later in the Cretaceous was much more notosaur-like compared to this individual. So, Boreapelta Mark Micheli's spectacularly detailed mummified remains were found by accident in March 2011 by excavator operator Sean Funk at the Sunker Millennium Mine in Alberta, Canada.
Did he defunk it?
Seems that way. I mean, when it comes to Alberta, a wide variety, I'd say the majority of prehistoric animal fossils, but especially dinosaurs specifically, come from this province. A handful can come in from British Columbia, but it's mostly Alberta. The specimen was exceptional in preserving soft tissue, including scales and keratinous coverings of the bony armor across the body, while also maintaining its 3D shape. In addition to the animal tissue, a large spheroid mass within the dinosaur's abdominal cavity was also preserved. The finding of the actual preserved stomach contents from a dinosaur is extraordinarily rare. And this stomach recovered from the mummified nodosaur by the museum team is by far the best preserved dinosaur stomach ever found to date, said senior author Dr. Jim Bessinger, a geologist in the Department of Geological Sciences at the University of Saskatchewan. Um, there might be a handful of fragmentary dinosaur specimens that come in from Saskatchewan as well. But what is interesting is that this is reminding me of another ankylosauromorph specimen that we found a few years earlier over in, I think, Montana with preserved tissue. And I also believe it was a nodosaur too.
Wait, mosasaur?
Well, I was kind of mixing mosasaur and nodosaur for a second. You likely did have different species of mosasaurs inhabiting the western interior sea. So these large marine reptiles, um, which split North America in half during the late Cretaceous period. But 110 million years ago, the mosasaurs had not evolved yet. Their ancestors were still quite small lizards. Let's see. In fact, let's bring up Edmontonia. So a much later nodosaur. Edmontonia. Yeah, this is a pretty basal reconstruction of a Edmontonia. Now the problem is that it is showing four claws. There really should only be three clawed toes, and the other two would be blunt. So it's also missing a toe in the front. Its hind legs seem okay. Quite wide, I'd say, for nodosaurs in general. And technically, that's a good thing to see in this picture, considering nodosaurs, especially later into their evolution, had quite wide feet compared to their body size, almost like the ceratopsians, such as Styracosaurus,
What about
Triceratops.
this guy?
This seems to be more of an ankylosaur sort of an accumulation. And some tyrannosaur in the background, it could be trying to replicate something like a Gorgosaurus, which the head structure looks somewhat similar. But looking at this ankylosaur, it's definitely not Edmontonia.
Wait,
It's
one's
not.
alive today.
I guess it's one of those reconstructions at a park. It's okay. Edmontonia does have a somewhat large skull compared to its body size, unlike many other species of um, nodosaur, especially from the early Cretaceous. Different areas of Europe, Asia, and North America did score a wide variety of different nodosaur species, technically, even into South America and Australia, and likely even Antarctica. So this animal reached somewhere around 18 to 20 feet in length. They're pushing 6 meters and probably weighed between 2.5 to 3 tons. So it was one of the larger species of nodosaurs. It did coexist with different species of ankylosaurs, though, like the Euoplocephalus. Um, in some instances, you could say that the Euoplocephalus might have been somewhat more heavily armored. That seems to be the case with the true ankylosaurs in general. And Montonia and the other nodosaurs are really relying on spiked armor and not so much on the flatter osteoderms that you would see on the true members of Ankylosauridae. This looks like something from Ark Survival Evolved
Oh, yeah, it says that. Okay.
that somebody changed. I have no idea if it's a creature from the game. It's definitely fairly off. No species of Nodosaur had this type of a spike accumulation coming from the side. I would say that the skull, however, does resemble a Nodosaur skull structure a lot more compared to one of the other reconstructions. Well, I just meant by like the possibly AI one. Even the tail looks somewhat similar to certain other types of species, like even Polycanthus over in 135 million year old England. Yeah, I guess if this is supposed to be in Edmontonia, yeah, it's not a bad at least accumulation of the different specimens. I think this is a real specimen of an Edmontonia. It's not bad. It's definitely not one of those specific specimens where there's a large elongated spikes, which we do have preserved specimens that contain those characteristics. But this seems to be another individual, or it could be possibly um, another species of Edmontonia, or just a close related Nodosaur. But I think it's just simply another Edmontonia individual. Very well preserved armor, especially along the back. Okay, let's go over to the article. So when people see this stunning fossil and are told that we know what its last meal was because its stomach was so well preserved inside the skeleton, it will almost bring the beast back to life for them, providing a glimpse of how the animal actually carried out its daily activities, where it lived, and what its preferred food was. Now, the thing is, when it comes to the different species of ferns, or you could say just basal plants during the Cretaceous period, there would have been a wide range of, per se, ferns these animals would have fed on, and not just one specific species. The same would go for the different species of conifer trees in the region, the different species of flowers. And we're in the late Cretaceous, not late Cretaceous, even the early Cretaceous, around 110 million years ago. Um, Hold on a second. Am I confusing this with that same Nodosaur? That's him. Like, that's the exact same, Nodosaur, in quote, mummy. We're calling it mummy because there's preserved tissue, stomach contents. Okay, never mind, that is him. So Dr. Basinger and colleagues found that the diet of Borealepelta markmicheli consisted of 88% leaf material, but also included stems, wood, and charcoal. The leaf fraction was dominated 85% by leptosporangiate ferns, the largest group of ferns today. Oh, that's specific. We have no idea technically, which is okay, but would be nice to know. We could get a little bit into like how much protein and fiber specifically he was intaking. The last meal of our dinosaur was mostly fern leaves, 88% chewed leaf material and 7% stems and twigs, said co author Dr. Kathy Greenwood, a researcher in the Department of Biology at Brandon University. When we examined thin sections of the stomach contents under a microscope, we were shocked to see beautifully preserved and concentrated plant material. In marine rocks, we almost never see such superb preservation of leaves, including the microscopic spore producing sporangiae of ferns. So likely was feeding on some of the similar different species of plants that other nodosaurs were feeding on in the region. Ceratopsians at this point over in Canada are almost next to non existent. So the same thing would occur in many different species of ornithopods. North America, at this point in the Cretaceous. Well, actually, okay, we're referring to 110 million years ago. There is a little bit going on. We have large carnivores like Acrocanthosaurus, certain species of taller sauropods. What I mean by that is animals that could reach well over 40 feet in the air or pushing 12 meters. And certain other nodosaurs like the Sauropelta, and as well as raptors or dromaeosaurs such as Deinonychus. So specifically, they identified 48 palynomorphs or microfossils like pollen and spores, including moss or liverwort, 26 club mosses and ferns, 13 gymnosperms, mostly conifers, and 2 angiosperms or flowering plants. Okay, well, never mind. They were able to track down a number of different species of plants in this instance. Quite remarkable. So also there is considerable charcoal in the stomach from burnt plant fragments, indicating that the animal was browsing in a recently burned area and was taking advantage of a recent fire and the flush of ferns that frequently emerges on a burned landscape. So yes, annual fires of not exactly occurring every year. There would be different time periods depending on the ecosystem that the dinosaur inhabited, as well as the time in the Mesozoic era, the fires would occur and help somewhat rejuvenate the ecosystem, at least when it comes to the plant life. This adaptation to a fire ecology is new information, like large herbivores alive today, such as moose and deer and elephants in Africa. These nodosaurs, by their feeding, would have shaped the vegetation on the landscape, possibly maintaining more open areas by their grazing.
which is why you say that bringing animals in from other countries can alter the entire ecosystem.
Well, that is a huge problem with different species of um, deer, antelope, members of the pig family. Even when it comes to different species of birds, and not just in North America, but around the world, different parts of Europe, Asia, Australia. when it comes to trying to fill in the gap or a niche in a certain ecosystem for another animal, a lot of the time just has negative consequences. It tends to be that um, usually attended livestock and just constantly rotated tend to have the best impact. So the team also found gastrolids or gizzard stones generally swallowed by animals such as herbivorous dinosaurs and today's birds such as geese to aid digestion. This is interesting coming from the notosaurs. To an extent, it's not exactly a surprise, considering we have a lot of evidence coming in from different species of large sauropod dinosaurs, as well as smaller members of the Paravis or the Dromaeosaur family with preserved stones inside of their stomach. Let's see, especially animals like Coptipteryx or Sinosauropteryx. They're over from China and existed about 15 million years earlier. In fact, let's bring up a Caudipteryx. So Caudipteryx. I haven't seen this kind of a reconstruction of him. It's quite it's a lacking to an extent when it comes to the overall plumage of feathers, or it could be simply that um I just haven't seen it in this type of a coloration before. Usually it's like red and blue, yellow, at least by what I've seen. Okay, this is giving it a bit of a taller sort of a gait, which tends to be um the morphology when it comes to Caudipteryx is that they have quite long legs compared to their body size, even more so than like the larger ornithomimids that roam different parts of Eurasia, North America during the Cretaceous period. It's definitely giving him a more menacing look. Likely, this animal was just feeding on different species of seeds, possibly different species of early fruit, and possibly going after insects, maybe reptiles and amphibians. But it seems to be that it was mostly herbivorous. Also, it doesn't look like this animal had the ability to fly or even glide.
Is this what you're referencing?
Not exactly him. I believe it was a painting. This is just a certain model. I haven't seen this either. That also looks like somebody's model that they created. I mean, it's not bad. They're giving Caudipteryx its own look. I don't mind the pheasant feather accumulation along the arms as well as the tail. They are giving the Caudipteryx somewhat stocky legs, which is technically correct to a certain extent, considering despite Caudipteryx having long legs, they also weren't exactly thin either. And the same thing would have occurred with different species of close relatives of Caudipteryx. So this animal did inhabit different parts of northern China around 125 million years ago and likely coexisted with other animals like Microraptors, Sinosauropteryx, Sinornithosaurus. Except I'm trying to remember, might be mixing up Sinosauropteryx with another location. It's not to confuse this animal with Sornitholestes, which is a different species of dromaeosaur that inhabited North America much later into the Cretaceous period, somewhere around 70 to 75 million years ago. Okay, we can head back to the article. So, taken together, these findings enable us to make inferences about the ecology of the animal, including how selective it was in choosing which plants to eat and how it may have exploited forest fire regrowth, said lead author Dr. Caleb Brown, paleontologist at the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology, so over in Alberta. It will also assist in understanding of dinosaur digestion and physiology. I mean, this is really good to go back over. I wonder where specifically, though, this specimen was discovered. Say again? Guessing possibly the Horseshoe Canyon Formation, or oh, okay, so it was a Sunker Millennium Mine. I don't know where specifically that was. Oh, okay, it was also back in 2011. I keep forgetting because, I remember hearing about it in the late 2010s. Okay. Well, this was good to see and really a bit into depth onto just what specifically they discovered and where it was found over in Canada as well. So let's head a bit forward in time into the Cenozoic era. So heading to the Ice Age from AccuWeather.com. Not usual. Very interesting. Hundreds of mammoth bones discovered in Austrian wine cellar. Okay, this is very interesting. Hundreds of mammoth bones have been uncovered in Austrian wine cellar in a discovery labeled an archaeological sensation. Yeah, definitely. Skeleton of a rare 4-meter tall male or 13-foot Mammothus meridionalis or southern mammoth is on display inside Aquila's 16th century or 1500 Spanish castle, central Italy. Well, that's a decent size mammoth. So, hundreds of mammoth bones have been uncovered in an Austrian wine cellar in a discovery labeled an archaeological sensation. The remains are thought to be between 30,000 and 40,000 years old, according to experts. And it is quite astounding considering we're finding a wide range of different woolly mammoth specimens over towards the very end of the Ice Age or the Pleistocene epoch. So, quite interesting. Andreas Perner Starfer made the incredible discovery while renovating his wine cellar in the village of Godelsberg, about 70 kilometers or 43 miles northwest of Vienna in March. The finding has been described as the most significant of its kind in more than a century, with researchers from the Austrian Academy of Sciences who are now recovering the bones, describing it as an archaeological sensation, according to a Wednesday press release. So it sounds like this is a very rare discovery for Austria. Mammoths do occur here. And mammoths aren't the only animals from the Ice Age, even prior, like the Pliocene epoch, the Miocene epoch, to be discovered here. You have other members of the Elephantoideae lineage of mammals or the Proboscideans, such as Gomphotherium, Periphelodon, and even cave bears have been discovered here too. Though there is somebody else that we should bring up, a saber-toothed cat that, we were talking about specifically Smilodon fatalis, the famous saber-toothed cat from North America, a few streams back, and there was a picture on the article, and it wasn't hitting me what specifically the animal was. Well, it was somebody very unique that I forgot, Megantrion. So, Megantrion. This saber-toothed cat has a very large chin compared
Wait
to
a
its.
minute. Give me a second.
Oh, well, it was just that in that picture, it, illustrated a saber-toothed cat with a very large chin compared to its skull size, and that's not really characteristic in what you see in the different Smilodon species, and the same thing would occur for Homotherium. Homotherium has also been discovered over in Europe as well as Asia and, different parts of North America. It's only slightly longer than Smilodon. Megantrion, however, has a much larger chin compared to its skull, a bit like the Nimrovids earlier in the Pliocene and the Miocene epoch, around 7 to 8 million years ago. This is a really good reconstruction of a Megantrion. It's almost replicating it like in how you see lions occasionally munching on a wildebeest or a zebra carcass, and they're using their side molars. It's very realistic. Also, when it comes to the canines of Megantrion, they are shorter in length compared to the Smilodon species, as well as even Homotherium to an extent. But they're much more robust as well, much wider diameter. Smilodons are much thinner.
So this is is it?
That's probably an older. Well, it's saying
It
Megantrion though.
says it, but that chin doesn't
Yeah,
look
but
like
it does have very small canines compared to, at least in terms of length. I can't tell when it comes to the width. It doesn't seem too wide, but somebody just created their own model. The skull shape is definitely not like Smilodon. It is much closer to something like a Megantrian. I still think it's a bit puffy, almost like giving it a somewhat Siberian tiger sort of an accumulation. The first structure, I mean, it's very possible that Megantrian might have been colored in this sort of way. This is giving a bit more of like a leopard or a jaguar accumulation, almost mixed with a clouded leopard towards the head, or a serval. But they are also depicting him in a more savanna landscape, which, depending on where you were in different parts of even Europe, Asia during the Ice Age, it might have been an ecosystem similar to the picture. I think it's a really good representation. He's hunting some species of Ice Age antelope. It's not like the impala of today over in Africa. Also, impala don't usually reach much more than 110, 120 pounds when it comes to the males, or pushing around 50 kilograms. Whereas you would have also seen different species of pronghorn related to today's pronghorn over in North America, also inhabiting different parts of Asia. But Megantrian likely went after a wide variety of different prey items. And this animal inhabited different parts of Eurasia as well as northern North America. I could believe we have found different fossils over in the Yukon, Alaska, possibly Alberta. It's just representing him going after a peacock.
That's what I just thought it was funny.
It's very likely. I mean, you have it where lions today occasionally, if they just feel like it, they sneak up on some vultures at a carcass, will kill a vulture and munch on it.
How
Um,
much food is on that thing?
it can't be very much, but for some reason they're just craving some wings and strips. So the same thing would have occurred with Megantrion, likely Smilodon, and Homotherium. Let's see. Oh, okay. Let's look up somebody else. Paraliphodon. Paraliphodon. Was it Paraliphodon? Am I saying that wrong?
No, I spelled it Paralphodon.
Um, Wait, hold on. Let's do. Wait, might have been Tetralophodon. So Tetralophodon. Now, did something come up? Okay. It shouldn't really look like a mammoth, more of its own four tusked proboscidean. So the Tetralophodon is not a species of Gomphothere, though some people, when first looking at it, might confuse it with Gomphothere to an extent. But it's just really at the moment its own member of Elephantoideae. So it's a really big question, considering despite it carrying similar characteristics, very similar to the Gomphotheres in general. Some might even say to an extent like the Dinotheres earlier on in the Pliocene, the Miocene epoch, but Dinotheres were quite different in overall morphology. They put a lot more focus into height during their evolution, as well as having that extra set of backward facing tusks. Whereas the Gomphotheres and more specifically like Tetralophodon are known as the four tusked elephants, though not being true members of Elephantidae. And these are also not members of the mammoth family. The mammoth family is quite small and is much more closely related to today's Asian elephants than they are African elephants. This is probably a depiction from the 1940s,
1966.
1950s. Oh, well, even for back then, it's pretty good. And it's also depicting the youngster as being quite furry, which is very likely the case. I mean, even when you see baby elephants that are born today, regardless of it being an Asian elephant or an African elephant, though it's usually much more present with Asian elephants, is that they are covered in fur. It's almost like looking at a small woolly mammoth to an extent. They can also have like an orange or sort of, I guess you could say, lighter brown sort of accumulation to their fur. And then as they grow up, it quickly diminishes. And this is also more evidence when looking at their tooth structure that they're probably leaf eaters and not feeding on a wide range of different species of grasses like the mammoths would. Let's see, when it comes to Tetralophodon, this animal also likely had to be quite careful when it came to packs if the saber-toothed cat hunted in prides or packs of megantrions, but likely for younger Tetralophodons, also towards the very end of their lineage. But yeah, this animal is likely just feeding on different species of trees over, well, probably shrubs as well
I
in
forgot, how did we get on him?
Austria. Um, I was just thinking of another brace source. We were talking about Megantrion, and I wanted to bring something else to join the mammoth. So let's see. Perner Storfer had decided to carry out some work to level the floor in the cellar. Archaeologist Hannah Perwow Suchan, a researcher at the OEAW, told CNN in a video call Thursday. He wanted to level the floor of his wine cellar because it was sloping, and he removed some concrete in the center. More or less immediately, he found the bones, which he initially thought were wood. Then he looked more closely and remembered a tale from his grandfather, who in the 60s extended the cellar and found some mammoth molars. Well, I mean, that's really good to hear. It's definitely just more evidence for mammoths roaming Austria, at least during the late Ice Age. Woolly mammoths were likely thriving in Europe for well over 400,000 years. So Perner Storfer reported the find to the Federal Monuments Office, which referred him to the OEAW because Oral Sushan told CNN we are experts on the Stone Age. Um, the Stone Age, it's more of referenced for ancient hominids or people. So I don't know necessarily how far back that goes. It could be somewhere around 3 million years around the time of Megalodon or the Pliocene epoch. So I'm referring to the giant shark. She and her team of fellow archaeologists embarked on an excavation at the start of May. It quickly became apparent that it wasn't just a few mammoth bones, but very many mammoth bones. Harash Sushan said they have at least 300 bones, which were found densely packed together. Now, the question is how many of these bones are just coming in from one mammoth, but even then, I'm guessing it's a handful of individuals. And it's just more evidence for the mammoths being quite social. Though it's likely that the males were probably roaming on their own. At least they were forming probably bachelor herds like today's African and Asian elephants. So let's see. We think we have mostly the complete animals. They're not in anatomical connection, but we do have probably all parts. She said, adding that the recovered hull includes some rare finds, including a lingual or a tongue bone. Whoa, that's pretty good. The archaeologists believe the bones are from three separate mammoths.
I didn't
This,
know animals had tongue bones.
yeah, it's just something that I haven't really focused on either. The site they excavated was just 12 square meters or 129 square feet. Big, but they're hoping to return in August to continue with their search. Wow, that's all the space. And they found that many bones. That's quite astounding. I love being an archaeologist. I've excavated lots of exciting things, but I always wanted to excavate a mammoth.
Why is an archaeologist excavating mammoths?
I think it was, yeah, they were specifically maybe trying to find things with Neanderthals or maybe Denisovans, another hominid.
Steal the job of the paleontologist?
Yeah, a lot of time when it comes to um, Ice Age mammals, it seems that way.
Yeah, I never
But
hear of paleontologist unearthing people.
um, yeah, I don't think I have either. It's quite odd when that occurs. So it said Pero Shushan, adding that the mammoth bone discovery was a first for her. I'm thrilled. I can't deny it. Comparable sites elsewhere in Austria and in neighboring countries were mostly excavated more than 100 years ago, which means they are not available for modern research. Guessing because like the fossils are gone from this area? I don't know, quite strange. Though, I mean, there's also been a ton of development, so maybe they've been just simply covered up. That's unfortunate. It's the first time we've been able to investigate something like this in Austria using modern methods. It is a unique opportunity for research, said Pero Sushan in the press release. So, the excavations funded by the Federal Monuments Office and the province of Lower Austria raised many questions, including whether these animals were killed by Stone Age hunters. We know that humans hunted mammoths, but we still know very little about how they did it,
Then
said
they drug them into their basement.
um you mean cave?
No, this was in someone's wine cellar. It's their
Well, yeah, it's
basement.
true. I mean, it is certainly possible that maybe these ancient hominids, except 30 to 40,000 years ago, pretty much like the pure Neanderthals, Denisovans had mixed with like each other as well as Homo sapiens, probably other hominids. So certainly it's possible they created a basement,
Wine
um,
cellar.
bunker. Yeah. Adding that a trap for the animals may have been set at this site. Once the researchers complete their work, the bones will be passed to the Natural History Museum Vienna for restoration. It's nice that they weren't rejected. So, yeah, maybe these mammoths were also creating like some gym. Anyway, I couldn't really get an Arnold thing out of that. Okay, well, this is really good to see coming in from Ice Age Austria. It hasn't been mentioned for quite a bit when it comes to different Ice Age discoveries over in Austria. I think they made Gantrion, which was found over in Lower Austria, which is probably in the same area um, where these specific mammoths were found as well. Like, I'm not saying in, like specific maybe neighborhood, but also found in Lower Austria, which is
So
where
when
Vienna is.
Schwarzenegger dies, he needs to be planted over there and then put his DVD collection, and they'll know what his bones were.
Um, maybe, but he was born further south. Let's see. Which there might have been
The idea
certain.
that you know that is just funny.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess it is odd. Okay, so let's head back to the Mesozoic. From Sci News, paleontologists uncover fossilized remains of baby ornithopod dinosaurs in Australia. Paleontologists have unearthed the 100 million-year-old fossilized bones of perinatal non-iguanodontian ornithopods in the Grimmin Creek Formation in central northern New South Wales, Australia. The fossils provide the first evidence of um, perinatal dinosaurs from Australia, and more broadly, the first insights into the high latitude breeding preferences of non-iguanodontian ornithopods in Gondwana.
Why does it
Wow.
have to add non-iguanodonts?
Um, Probably because it's referring to an ornithopod that's not an iguanodontid. Like there were different ornithopod. All iguanodontids are ornithopods, not all ornithopods are iguanodontids.
Okay.
So this is really interesting. So apparently, we're getting some of the breeding insights from whatever the specimen was of these smaller ornithopods. Well, this seems to be some relative of the Lianosaura, which is found over in Victoria back in the I think early 1980s by Tom Rich.
I don't think that blue is going to help with camouflage.
Um, yeah, probably not. I mean, even in the water, but likely to help with reproduction. So the newly studied fossils belong to a species of small-bodied ornithopod dinosaur very similar to Weewarosaurus pobeni.
Weewa.
So to estimate the individual's age, the researchers used growth rings in the dinosaur's bones, similar to the rings in a tree trunk. Age is usually estimated by counting growth rings, but we couldn't do this with our two smallest specimens, which had lost their internal detail, said Justin Kitchener, a PhD student in the School of Environmental and Rural Science at the University of New England. Oh, wow. They lost their growth rings? That's a shocker, considering we have several instances when it comes to different species of sauropods, theropods, especially coming in from like titanosaurs, even the long necked sauropods from the Jurassic, like Diplodocus, Brontosaurus, where we can look at the growth rings of these animals and see how old they were when they died, as well as how long it's or how rapid of growth stages they were having as they were growing up. Same thing for different types of ornithopods, like even tyrannosaurs. So this is quite astounding that they don't have access to this. To get around this, we compared the size of these bones with the size of growth rings from the Victorian dinosaurs. This comparison confidently places them at an early growth stage, probably prior to or around the point of hatching. Approximately 100 million years ago, when these dinosaurs were being born, Australia was much closer to the South Pole. Well, this is definitely true. Antarctica and Australia were pretty much connected at this point. And you had it where different species of dinosaurs were moving back and forth between these two continents, as well as like different members of the sauropod lineage of dinosaurs, like the Diamantinosaurus. In fact, let's bring him up. This long neck, which is not a titanosaur. Now, some might confuse it with that. So Diamantint.
Wait, wait. Diamaint.
Um, I think just ANT.
Okay.
OSAURUS.
Oh, that's too big. Hold
It's sort of stocky. It's probably him. Um, yeah, interesting. So Diamantinosaurus, it's a bit of a mysterious member of the Cephalospondyle lineage of sauropod dinosaurs. So it is also a macroninian sauropod. Technically, the macroninians would consist of a wide range of different species. Not all of them, but most. Diamantinosaurus was a medium-sized species, probably reaching somewhere between 50 to 60 feet in length, and probably reaching somewhere around 15 to 18 or 19 meters.
Did we bring him up the other day?
I You might have brought up one of the pictures, but I didn't bring up the animal itself. Um, what was the other thing? Oh, so it is shown as being quite a bit of a stocky sort of a sauropod, and it could also weigh probably somewhere between 20 to 28 tons. So, definitely one of the larger, probably the largest species to roam Australia, probably competing with Australotitan. So, this animal existed in the region somewhere around 100 and I believe somewhere between 108 and 112 million years ago during the early Cretaceous period.
Okay, wait. Now this is stocky.
Oh, yeah, this is from that documentary way back, I think in the 2010s, where they, they just made it huge,
It looks like
and
it can't stop eating, but there's
it's
no food around.
technically, it's reconstructed as, like, being much more, um, just I guess you could say wide compared to even Argentinosaurus. This thing is massive and too short and, um, just wide in diameter when it comes to the neck structure, also too short of a neck. Far too large of a head compared to its body size. There wasn't a single species of sauropod dinosaur that had a head this large. The tail is probably the closest to accurate when it comes to any part of the anatomy of this animal that would be somewhat realistic. This looks like somebody took a like a Saur Poseidon or a starving Giraffatitan from late Jurassic Tanzania, Africa, and then combined it with possibly a member of the Lithostrodiae lineage of Titanosaurs, and then called it a Dimantinosaurus. That is not. Seems to have like a Walking with Dinosaurs um, just background. This is not bad. They are adding osteoderms to, or like spike-like osteoderms towards the back of the core, as well as the upper part of the tail, the neck, and stopping right around the back of the skull. It's very possible. This animal is a bit more closely related to the diplodocids, unlike the titanosaurs. So it certainly is probable or possible that it might have had those specific osteoderms. It is giving it some somewhat armor. Probably what you have occurring here is a Diamantinosaurus facing off a bunch of, well, a pack of Australovenators, which is one of the largest species of carnivorous dinosaurs to exist over in Cretaceous Australia. The animal reached somewhere around 7 meters or pushing 23 feet in length, and probably reached somewhere around 1,800 to 2,200 pounds or pushing around 1,000 kilograms. But likely they were not going after a full-grown Diamantinosaurus. They virtually didn't really have any enemies outside of themselves or fighting other Diamantinosaurs, which it certainly was possible, especially during the breeding season, for one to kill the other. And likely Australovenators would probably just prey on the smaller individuals of a herd. Also, I think that specific Dimantinosaurus was a bit off, almost like the, documentary. That's not a bad representation. I think that's pretty good. It is giving it, certain members of the Sophospondylii lineage of not diplodocids, but macroninian sauropods are shown as having armor, much like the different members of the Saltasaur lineage of Lithostrodian titanosaurs, and even back into the early Jurassic to an extent. Um, the sauropods I'm thinking of were not necessarily armored on their back, but they had more of like a armored spiked tail, like the Shunnosaurus. But very similar to an extent, like the Nodosaurs, and even certain members of the Iguanodontid or the Hadrosaur lineage of dinosaurs that have preserved skin, showing that they were somewhat armored. You could even say the Pachycephalosaurs to an extent. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad representation either. The first one was almost a bit thin when it came to the core. It's just a bit odd. It's like it was starving. So, southeastern Australia would have been between 60 degrees. Guessing it's talking about longitude and latitude. Not sure what the S stands for at the moment.
Celsius? No, that's C.
Yeah, I don't know what 60 and 70 are. So equivalent to modern day Greenland. Although the climate at these latitudes was relatively warmer than they are today, like some Antarctic penguins, these dinosaurs would have endured long, dark winters and possibly burrowed or hibernated to survive. There actually is, it seems, evidence for different species of smaller, at least, ornithopods in the region to have hibernated. Um, like showing a bit of the difference in bone that would have occurred during the hibernation stage, probably like during the winter, possibly late fall, early spring. Now, the question is, would these animals have truly hibernated like ground squirrels so their temperature dramatically falls through the core temperature as well as their heartbeat? Or would they have brumated like bears do today? So, because they are so delicate, eggshell and tiny bones rarely survive to become fossils. We have examples of hatchling sized dinosaurs from close to the North Pole, but this is the first time we've seen this kind of thing anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere, said Dr. Phil Bell, a paleontologist in the School of Environmental and Rural Science at the University of New England. I believe there have been possibly certain fragmented specimens of dinosaurs occurring in the Canadian Arctic Islands, which is likely what Dr. Bell is referring to by approaching the North Pole. Possibly Svalbard, Norway as well. Fragmentary remains. though marine deposits tend to be more abundant in Svalbard. So likely, or they do host a wide range of different species of marine reptiles. So it's the first clue we've had about where these animals were breeding and raising their young. Yeah, it definitely looks much closer to Leonosaura. It's definitely an elasmarian too. Okay. It's good to see. Let's head forward to the Cenozoic era. Oh, wait. Was that? Oh, that was strange.
Oh, okay. I didn't see this one.
So from MLive.com, Isle Royale's wolf population surges to highest numbers in nearly 50 years. Which is really good to hear. Considering back in the 2010s, they were having a really big problem in Isle Royale National Park, which is on the island of Isle Royale, which is in Lake Superior and is adjacent to the northeastern part of Minnesota. It's also close to the province of Manitoba, Canada. The problem is it literally dwindled down to two siblings. And so I think it was the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or the National Park Service that was taking in wolves from Manitoba as well as Minnesota and relocating them to the island to help bring down the wolf population as well as introduce genetics to the last couple of siblings. The wolves originally, it seems, reached here by um, certain harsh winters that would have allowed them to cross the lake. And then just there have been many winters since then where it just simply hasn't been cold enough to maintain an ice bridge that can carry the wolves' weight. So on the island originally, there were somewhere around 1,500 to 1,800 moose. The problem is that so basically this had the densest population of moose on Earth, and they were causing a lot of havoc to the woodland. At least I'm not sure if it's changed very much, but supposedly the wolves have had an impact in their population. Well, let's see what happened. So these are wolves from the East Pack, seen bedded on the ice in the middle of Siskiwit Lake on February 14th. So this was back in the winter. The top image shows a wolf resting its head and chin on the body of another wolf, a behavior often observed in breeding pairs and associated with courtship. So this is likely the parents, possibly of these two.
That one looks like it's chewing on fleas, except there's no way there's fleas alive out there.
Yeah, definitely the tick situation these days is nuts. But putting that aside, 8 years after the National Park Service began bringing in new wolves to reboot Isle Royale's faltering predator balance, the wolf population on this remote and rocky archipelago in Lake Superior has now reached the highest level since the late 1970s. Whoa, wow, that's really good to hear. And luckily, I'm guessing there's a lot of genetic variety occurring here too. 37 wolves are now organized into three packs across the island. That's astounding to hear, but there's a lot of food too. Um, and all packs will likely welcome pups this year, according to researchers with the Isle Royale Wolf Moose Project. Michigan Technological University and its renowned researchers today released the highlights of of its annual report. See all the details on the website here. Oh no, it wasn't joking. Well, that's a mystery. I'll definitely look into this. Um, okay, well, this is a big mystery, but thanks for joining. Um, yeah, we're going to definitely bring up these wolves later as well as other populations. So, from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News. Happy International Notisaur Day, and from wait, streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. And remember that nothing is better than all animals all the time.